That morning in my Columbia University office started like any other. Coffee steaming on my desk, the familiar drone of Manhattan traffic filtering through my windows, and a stack of astronomical data waiting for review. I had no idea that within the next hour, everything I thought I knew about our cosmic neighborhood would be turned upside down. But let me tell you what NASA doesn't want you to know about 3I Atlas. You see, when Dr. Sarah Chen from Hawaii's Gemini Observatory called me at 11:47 p.m. that Tuesday night, her voice was shaking. Not the excitement you'd expect from a groundbreaking discovery, but something else entirely. Fear, maybe, or disbelief. Professor Kaku, she whispered into the phone, we've been running the calculations for 3 weeks straight. Every computer model, every physics simulation, they all point to the same impossible conclusion. I could hear papers shuffling in the background, the nervous energy of a scientist confronting data that challenges everything she's been trained to believe. What are you talking about, Sarah? 3I Atlas, it's hollow, Michio, completely hollow. Have you ever had one of those moments where reality seems to pause? Where your brain struggles to process information that simply can't be true? That's exactly what happened to me at 11:48 p.m. that night. Because what Sarah was suggesting wasn't just unusual, it was physically impossible. But here's what keeps me awake at night and why I'm sharing this with you now. Think about this for a moment. We're talking about an object that weighs approximately 33 billion tons. Imagine stacking more than 5,000 Great Pyramids of Giza on top of each other. Its diameter spans somewhere between 5 and 46 kilometers, depending on what we assume about its composition. This is a mountain-sized visitor from another star system racing through our solar system at speeds that dwarf anything humans have ever achieved. Yet when this massive object passed within just 29 million kilometers of Mars on October 3rd, something extraordinary happened, or rather something extraordinary didn't happen. You see, Mars has some of the most sophisticated gravitational monitoring equipment in our solar system. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, Curiosity rover, Perseverance, they're all equipped with incredibly sensitive instruments that can detect the tiniest gravitational fluctuations. When a 33 billion ton mountain flies past your planet, you should feel it. The tidal forces alone should register on every seismometer on the Martian surface. But they didn't. The gravitational influence of 3I Atlas registered as practically negligible, essentially undetectable. For a trained astrophysicist, this presents a contradiction as profound as placing a heavy bowling ball directly beside a lightweight basketball and discovering they exert identical gravitational pull. Something fundamental doesn't add up with what we're observing. So we're left with two possibilities, and neither fits comfortably into our existing models. Either 3I Atlas consists of exotic material with density lower than anything natural processes have ever manufactured, lighter even than industrial foam, essentially defying our understanding of cosmic chemistry. Or alternatively, there exists substantially less physical matter within this object than its external appearance suggests. The equations consistently whisper one explanation more insistently than the alternatives. The interior is hollow. But wait, there's something else about that night that I haven't told you yet. Something that made Sarah's call even more disturbing. After she explained the gravitational anomaly, she went quiet for almost 30 seconds. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, the soft hum of computers processing data in her laboratory thousands of miles away. Sarah, are you still there? Michio, there's more. The rotational data, it doesn't match either. She was referring to something called the moment of inertia, a fundamental relationship between an object's mass distribution and how it spins through space. It's physics 101, really. A solid sphere spins differently than a hollow one. The math is ironclad, tested and verified countless times over centuries of scientific observation. If 3I Atlas represented a uniform solid block of compressed ice and rock, what we'd expect from a typical comet is total mass and rotational characteristics would necessarily satisfy predictable mathematical relationships. They don't. The measured spin rate proves too leisurely for an object of its apparent size. Or conversely, the mass registers too modest for the observed rotational stability. The only path toward reconciling these contradictory observations requires removing substantial mass from the interior volume, creating an internal void. The inevitable conclusion points toward a shell structure. Now, I need you to understand something. In my 40-year career studying theoretical physics, I've learned to be skeptical of extraordinary claims. The universe is strange enough without inventing mysteries where none exist. So my first instinct was to find a conventional explanation. Maybe our distance measurements were wrong. Maybe the spectroscopic analysis was contaminated. Maybe there was some exotic but natural process we hadn't considered. But then the James Webb Space Telescope data came in. Webb's spectroscopic analysis revealed something that sent another shockwave through the global astronomical community. While 3 Atlas indeed contained abundant frozen carbon dioxide, which partially explained the explosive outgassing we were witnessing, it demonstrated surprisingly minimal concentrations of water ice, the fundamental primary ingredient comprising virtually every comet we had ever studied in detail. Instead, Webb's instruments revealed unusual signatures indicating complex organic compounds and concentrations of heavy elemental materials that simply weren't supposed to exist in these proportions. This wasn't behaving like some simple, dirty snowball tumbling through space. It functioned more like an intricate chemical factory, and concealed at its core existed something possessing sufficient structural integrity to hold this entire volatile system together against impossible odds. You know what the most unsettling part is? The timing. 3 nights after Sarah's initial call, I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling when another thought struck me. 3 Atlas isn't just hollow, it's hollow and intact after a journey that should have destroyed any conventional structure millions of years ago. Think about what this object has endured. The temperature fluctuations of deep space ranging from near absolute zero to whatever heat it absorbed from distant stellar radiation. The bombardment of cosmic rays, high-energy particles that can shatter molecular bonds. The gravitational stresses of passing near multiple star systems during its interstellar voyage. Any natural hollow structure should have collapsed long ago. The fact that it hasn't suggests something extraordinary about its construction. Either we're dealing with material science beyond our current understanding, or well, that's where my scientific training starts conflicting with what the evidence is telling me. Let me share with you what happened during my conversation with Harvard's Avi Loeb last week. Avi, as you might know, was the scientist who first proposed that Oumuamua might represent extraterrestrial technology back in 2017. His colleagues largely dismissed his hypothesis, preferring conventional natural explanations, however implausible. Michio, he told me over coffee in Cambridge, what if we got it wrong? What if Oumuamua was just the beginning? He pulled out his tablet and showed me his latest calculations on 3I Atlas. The numbers were even more disturbing than what Sarah had shared with me. Look at this trajectory analysis, he said, pointing to a complex orbital diagram. This isn't random, the precision is extraordinary. What Avi had discovered was that 3I Atlas isn't just hollow, it's following a path through our solar system that threads past Venus, Mars, and Jupiter. With timing so precise, the probability calculates at less than 1 in 50,000 for random coincidence. But here's what really sent chills down my spine. It's not just passing by these planets, Avi continued, it's using them. Each gravitational encounter is perfectly positioned for what aerospace engineers call an Oberth maneuver, exploiting gravity wells to alter trajectory with minimal energy expenditure. I stared at the orbital projections on his screen. You're suggesting intentional navigation. I'm not suggesting anything, he replied quietly. I'm just showing you what the math says. That night, I sat in my office until 3 a.m., running my own calculations, checking and rechecking the data. Every analysis pointed to the same impossible conclusion. We weren't just observing a hollow object, we were observing a hollow object that appeared to be maneuvering. But wait, before I tell you what happened next, you need to understand something about the institutional response to these findings. The silence has been deafening. NASA, which typically releases astronomical data within days of acquisition, has been conspicuously quiet about their Mars flyby observations. The European Space Agency points to ongoing analysis when pressed for details. China's space program, which usually shares imagery promptly, has offered no official statements. When multiple nations simultaneously delay releasing data from such a significant event, it raises questions, uncomfortable questions. I've been in this field long enough to recognize the patterns of scientific caution versus institutional concern. This feels different. This feels like organizations grappling with information they're not sure how to present to the public. 3 weeks ago, I received a call from a colleague at JPL, someone I've known for 15 years, someone I trust implicitly. She couldn't say much over the phone, but what she did say has haunted me ever since. Michio, there are things about 3I Atlas that aren't making it into the public reports. Things that are making people very nervous. What kind of things? The kind that make you question whether we're alone. Now, I want to be clear about something. I'm not promoting conspiracy theories or suggesting some vast cover-up. What I am saying is that we're dealing with observational data that challenges fundamental assumptions about how the universe works. And sometimes, when faced with paradigm-shifting discoveries, institutions need time to figure out how to communicate them responsibly. But here's what troubles me most about this entire situation. Yesterday morning, I received another call from Sarah at Gemini Observatory. Her voice had changed over the past month, less excited, more cautious, almost fearful. We've been monitoring 3I Atlas continuously, she told me, and there's something else, something we haven't announced publicly. My heart rate increased. What now? The hollow interior, it's not empty. I nearly dropped my coffee. What do you mean? There's something inside. We can't determine what it is from this distance, but spectroscopic analysis suggests organized structure, geometric patterns, almost like, she paused for nearly 20 seconds, like architecture. Have you ever had the feeling that you're standing at the edge of a discovery so profound it could change everything we think we know about our place in the universe? That's exactly where I find myself today. Because if 3i Atlas truly contains organized internal structure, if its hollow interior houses something that resembles deliberate construction, then we're not just observing an unusual comet. We're potentially witnessing our first confirmed encounter with technology from beyond our solar system. Now, I know how that sounds. Believe me, I know. 6 months ago, if someone had told me I'd be seriously considering the possibility of artificial structures in interstellar space, I would have questioned their scientific objectivity. But the universe doesn't owe us comfort or familiar explanations. It simply is what it is. And sometimes what it is challenges everything we thought we understood. The most unsettling aspect of this entire mystery is what happens next. In exactly 2 weeks, 3i Atlas will disappear behind our sun's overwhelming glare, hidden from observation during its closest approach, the moment when solar heating and gravitational stresses reach their absolute maximum. When it reemerges in December, we'll finally have our answer. If it survives perihelion completely intact, the probability of artificial origin jumps dramatically. And if it continues exhibiting those impossible deceleration maneuvers we've been tracking, well, then we'll know we're not alone. But there's something else I need to tell you about that night Sarah called me with the hollow interior discovery, something that's been keeping me awake for weeks. After she finished explaining the gravitational anomalies and rotational inconsistencies, I asked her a question that I'd been afraid to voice. Sarah, in your professional opinion, based on everything you've observed, what do you think 3i Atlas actually is? The silence stretched so long I thought we'd lost connection. Finally, she answered with a whisper, I think it's a message, Michio, and I think it's been traveling toward us for a very, very long time. As I sit here in my office tonight, looking out at the lights of New York City, I can't shake the feeling that everything is about to change. Whether 3D Atlas proves to be an exotic natural phenomenon or something more extraordinary, it has already accomplished something profound. It has forced our collective consciousness to confront possibilities we've always comfortably dismissed as science fiction. The universe is stranger than we imagined, and perhaps, just perhaps, we're finally ready to listen to what it's been trying to tell us all along. Tomorrow, I'll be back in the lab running more calculations, analyzing more data, searching for the truth hidden within the numbers. Because that's what scientists do. We follow the evidence wherever it leads, even when it leads us to places we never expected to go. But tonight, I'm just a human being, standing at the edge of the unknown, wondering if somewhere in the hollow depths of 3i Atlas, something is wondering about us too. And there's something else I haven't told you yet, something that happened just 3 days ago that changed everything. I was reviewing the latest spectroscopic data from the Very Large Telescope in Chile when my assistant knocked on my door. Dr. Martinez rarely interrupts me during analysis sessions unless it's urgent. Professor, there's someone here to see you. Says it's about 3i Atlas. I looked up from my computer screen expecting perhaps a graduate student or visiting researcher. Instead, standing in my doorway was a woman I didn't recognize, mid-40s, wearing a dark suit, carrying a briefcase that looked expensive and official. Dr. Kaku, my name is Agent Reynolds. I work for a government agency that coordinates with NASA on matters of unusual astronomical significance. Have you ever had someone walk into your life and immediately know they're about to tell you something that will change everything? That's exactly what happened at 2:17 p.m. last Thursday. She sat down across from my desk without being invited, opened her briefcase, and pulled out a folder marked with classifications I'd only seen in movies. What I'm about to share with you cannot leave this room, she said, her voice carrying the weight of someone accustomed to being obeyed. We need your expertise, and frankly, you're already too deep into this discovery to be kept in the dark any longer. The first document she showed me was a trajectory analysis that made Avi Loeb's calculations look elementary. This wasn't just about 3i Atlas using gravitational assist. This was evidence of active course corrections, micro adjustments that had been occurring throughout its journey through our solar system. We've been tracking these maneuvers for 6 weeks, she explained. Each adjustment is precisely calculated, executed with surgical precision. This isn't natural orbital mechanics, doctor. This is navigation. But that wasn't the most disturbing part. The second document contained something that made my hands shake as I read it. Deep space monitoring stations, facilities whose existence isn't publicly acknowledged, had been detecting electromagnetic emissions from 3i Atlas. Not random radio noise or thermal radiation, but structured signals. Patterns that suggested deliberate transmission. What kind of patterns, I asked, though part of me already suspected the answer. Mathematical progressions, prime number sequences, the kind of signals SETI has been hoping to receive for decades. I stared at the frequency analyses, the signal breakdowns, the temporal patterns. Everything in my scientific training screamed that this had to be instrument error, cosmic background noise, anything except what it appeared to be. But the data was irrefutable. Dr. Kaku, we believe 3i Atlas isn't just hollow. We believe it's occupied The room went silent except for the distant hum of Manhattan traffic and the racing of my own heartbeat. 40 years of studying the cosmos, of teaching students about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, of wondering if we were alone in the universe. And here it was, sitting in a classified folder on my desk. What do you need from me? I heard myself asking. Agent Reynolds leaned forward. We need you to help us understand what they want. Over the next 3 hours, she shared information that fundamentally altered my understanding of our cosmic situation. The hollow interior of 3i Atlas wasn't just architectural, it was functional. Thermal imaging suggested active systems, energy distribution patterns that resembled nothing in our technological repertoire. More unsettling still, the object's deceleration wasn't random. Analysis showed it was gradually adjusting its trajectory to extend its time in our solar system. Instead of the brief flyby we'd initially calculated, current projections suggested 3i Atlas might establish a stable orbit. It's slowing down deliberately, Agent Reynolds explained, as if it wants to stay. But here's what kept me awake for the next 3 nights. She showed me communication intercepts, not from 3i Atlas, but from other sources. Deep space monitoring arrays had detected response signals. Brief transmissions from the direction of nearby star systems, as if the presence of 3i Atlas had triggered some kind of interstellar conversation. We're not just dealing with one visitor, she said quietly. We believe there are others, watching, waiting. The implications hit me like a physical blow. If 3i Atlas was indeed an artificial construct, if it was actively communicating with other intelligences, then humanity was no longer alone in the universe. More than that, we were apparently subjects of interest to civilizations far more advanced than our own. But why are you telling me this? I asked. Because in 2 weeks, when 3 Atlas reaches perihelion, we believe something significant is going to happen, and we need the best theoretical physicist we can find to help us understand what. That night, after Agent Reynolds left with her classified files and stern warnings about national security, I sat in my office until dawn, staring at equations that no longer made sense. Everything I thought I knew about physics, about the universe, about our place in the cosmic order, it all felt suddenly fragile, temporary, naive. I called Sarah at Gemini Observatory at 6 a.m. Sarah, I need you to tell me something honestly. When you're observing 3i Atlas, when you're looking at all that data, do you ever get the feeling that it's looking back? The silence stretched for almost a minute. Every single night, Michio, every single night. But there's more. Something that happened yesterday that I'm not sure I should even be telling you. I was contacted by Dr. Elena Vasquez, a linguist who specializes in pattern recognition and communication theory. Apparently, she'd been quietly brought in to analyze the electromagnetic signals from 3i Atlas. Professor Kaku, she said over our encrypted video call, I think they're trying to teach us their language. She showed me signal progressions that started simple, basic mathematical concepts, prime numbers, geometric relationships. But over the past month, the transmissions had grown increasingly complex, building upon previous concepts like lessons in a cosmic classroom. It's pedagogical, she explained. They're starting with concepts they know we understand and gradually introducing more advanced ideas, almost like they're preparing us for something, I finished. That realization sent chills through my entire body. If an advanced civilization was deliberately educating us, if they were taking the time to establish meaningful communication, what did that suggest about their intentions? More importantly, what were they preparing us for? Yesterday evening, I received another call from Agent Reynolds. Her voice was more urgent this time, carrying an edge of barely controlled anxiety. Dr. Kaku, we need to meet again, immediately. She arrived at my office within an hour, carrying fresh documents that made the previous revelations seem almost mundane by comparison. 3 hours ago, our deep space arrays detected something unprecedented, she began, spreading satellite images across my desk. Multiple objects approaching from the same vector as 3i Atlas, smaller but exhibiting identical propulsion signatures. I stared at the tracking data, my mind struggling to process what I was seeing. How many? 17 confirmed, possibly more beyond our detection range. The room seemed to shrink around me. We weren't dealing with a single visitor anymore. This was beginning to look like a convoy, a delegation, a first contact scenario that made every science fiction scenario I'd ever imagined seem hopelessly optimistic. When will they arrive? Current projections suggest they'll reach our outer system boundaries within 6 months. Dr. Kaku, we're no longer dealing with a scientific anomaly. We're dealing with what appears to be a coordinated extraterrestrial presence. But here's what terrifies me most about this entire situation. The electromagnetic signals from 3i Atlas have changed. Over the past week, the transmissions have become increasingly focused on Earth specifically. Not random broadcasts into space, but directed beams aimed precisely at our planet's major population centers. They know we're here, Agent Reynolds said quietly, and they know we're listening. As I write this, sitting in my office at 3 a.m. while the city sleeps around me, I can't escape the feeling that we're living through the most significant moment in human history. Whether 3I Atlas and its companions represent a peaceful first contact or something more ominous, one thing is certain: our cosmic isolation is ending. The hollow interior that Sarah first detected isn't just an engineering curiosity, it's a habitat, a life support system, a home for intelligences that have traveled between the stars to reach us. And if the government's analysis is correct, they're not planning to leave anytime soon. Tomorrow, I'm scheduled to brief a joint committee of NASA administrators, military officials, and international representatives. For the first time in my career, I'll be discussing not theoretical physics or mathematical possibilities, but the practical reality of contact with non-human intelligence. But tonight, as I look up at the stars through my office window, I find myself wondering about the beings inside 3I Atlas. What are they thinking as they approach our sun? What do they see when they look at Earth? Are they studying us with the same mixture of excitement and apprehension that we're experiencing? Most importantly, what message are they trying to send us? And are we intelligent enough to understand it before it's too late? The universe has just become a very different place. And whether we're ready or not, first contact isn't a question of if anymore. It's a question of when.